we move into the Word, first of all, I want to thank whoever it is that has been taking care of our nice flower arrangements. I sat here in Sabbath school this morning and really appreciated the beauty and the care that it took to have that beauty there. I also wanted to mention, I forgot, David talked with me during the break between Sabbath school and church, and if you run into David after church today, you'll notice he has a little name tag around his neck. It says David, and then it says prayer. Actually, it says prayer, and then below it, it says David. And David told me, he said, I pray for all of you. Now, he's told me for a long time, he'll come to me personally and say, Pastor, I'm praying for you. And I always tell him, David, I appreciate that so much. But he wanted me to let you all know as well, he prays for you, and if any of you would like to pray with him after the service, he's open and willing and interested in doing that. So David is your man of prayer. I mentioned one of the ladies in our congregation who is gathering and encouraging ladies in prayer, but David is your man for prayer. So if any of the gentlemen want to meet with David, this is his calling, and he feels from the Lord this is his calling, is to engage in prayer with others for the sake of the church family. I appreciate that. Meant to say that during my introduction, and it slipped my mind. I'm sorry, David, but we got it in now. So our focus right now at this present juncture is chapters 4 and 5 in the book of Revelation. And as I've had the privilege of sitting myself down in these chapters and studying and thinking and praying and reflecting, I've come to the awareness all over again, and even more deeply this time than ever before, that these two chapters are the very heart of the book, and in a very real way, the key to everything else which follows. We so often find our great interest in chapters 12 and 13 and 14 and what's going to happen in history and how will it affect us and what is our role and place. And it's not wrong that we should be interested, because obviously those are in the book of Revelation as well, and they're important as well. But I've become increasingly convinced that unless chapters 4 and 5 grip us deeply and have all their way with us, shaping us and molding us at the deepest levels of our life and experience, it wouldn't matter what we knew from the rest of the book. It's these chapters that prepare our hearts. It's these chapters that give us the most essential things, so that as the rest of the book unfolds, our hearts are where they need to be, where He would have them to be. So really vital and important chapters. Let's read, just to remind ourselves, let's read here in chapter 5. I saw on the right hand of Him, starting in verse 1, I saw on the right hand of Him who sat on the throne a book, written inside and on the back, sealed up with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, Who is worthy to open the book and to break its seals? And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the book or to look into it. Then I began to weep greatly, because no one was found worthy to open the book or to look into it. And one of the elders said to me, "Stop weeping. Behold, the Lion that is from the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has overcome, so as to open the book and its 7 seals." There it is. That last phrase is our focus today. Stop weeping. The Lion from the tribe of Judah has overcome so as to open the book and to break its seals. We have noted in previous weeks that the significance of opening the book was that this Lion from the tribe of Judah, he was able to take human history, to move people, to move historical processes down through time to the full resolution of the sin problem. The significance of this book being opened is that the human problem gets completely resolved. That we go from the incarnation, the death, the resurrection, the ascension of Christ, that we go from that point at which He ascended and began His heavenly work, that we go from there clear down through time till that day it's fulfilled. I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and the old was completely passed away. Heaven needed someone who could accomplish this work, and no one was found. And John weeps because he knows unless this work is done, it's all over. There's no hope, there's no meaning, there's no value in human experience. All will be lost, all will unravel, all will come to a complete and terrible end. Oh, but the elder says, "Stop weeping. Stop weeping. The Lion that is from the tribe of Judah has overcome so as to open the book." Do we understand the significance of this? This short, simple little phrase. Do we understand its significance? I reflected again this week. The book of Revelation takes vast meanings from the Scripture, from all the books of Scripture. It gathers them together, pulls them together, and encapsulates them in just short little metaphorical phrases. And yet whole worlds are found in just those short phrases. Do you realize how much John has captured with this simple phrase, "The Lion from the tribe of Judah has overcome"? It captures the whole of Paul in that one phrase. All of Paul's letters are captured in that one phrase. And so we're dealing with things of tremendous significance. Do we understand the significance of this? Do we sense and feel the momentous nature of this pronouncement? It's an important question. Really, it's the only really important question that any of us have in the whole of our lives. We could do all kinds of things, have all kinds of experiences, be master of all kinds of fields of endeavor and thought, and we could what's the phrase go? Whoever it won't click for me right now. How does Jesus say it? Whoever masters the whole world, or you can gain the whole world but lose your soul. We could do all kinds of things. We could gain the whole world, as it were. And if we failed to understand the significance of this phrase, we would have nothing. It's an important question. It's the only question, really the only question that needs to be answered. Well then, right on its heels comes another question. If it's that important, how do we know whether we have understood? How do we know whether the significance of this short phrase of John's in regards to the lion from the tribe of Judah? How do we know that that significance has taken hold of us and captured our hearts and accomplished in our hearts that which God intends it to accomplish? What would be the sign that we have grasped the significance of this elder's statement? Remember, it was one of the elders who said this to John. Stop weeping. Look. One of the elders who clued him in. So, how would we know? How would we know that we had understood the significance of what is here being said? Well, we find our clue in the rest of the passage. The question came from the passage. The answer should be in the passage. And we find our clue there. If we pay attention to the rest of the passage, we find the answer to our question. How do we know I've understood? We find it in the response of both the living creatures and the elders, and then all the angels together. Let's look there. Let's see what we can find. Verse 9. Verse 9, there's this question, who can open the book? One is found. He comes and he takes the book out of the hand of the one who sat on the throne. And then when he had taken the book, verse 8, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. The one who is a lion is now seen as a lamb. And they fell down before him, each one holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song. They sang a new song. You see the emphasis here on joyful, praise-filled singing. They sang a new song. Then if we look down in verse 14, actually it mentioned it in verse 8 as well. Did you notice they fell down before the Lamb? What does that scriptural phrase mean? When it talks about falling down before, what's it talking about? I think I heard someone say it. It's worship. It's worship that's taking place. And then we get down to the very end of the chapter as well. And in verse 14, after they've sung their songs of worship, in verse 14 we're told this, and the 4 living creatures kept saying, Amen. Which of course we know means, so be it, so be it, so be it. They're leaning into the thing that they've been saying, and then the elders fell down and worshipped. So how do we know? How do we know we've really understood the significance of this phrase, the lion from the tribe of Judah has overcome? It's right here. It's here in what we've just noticed. If you have grasped and continue to grasp the significance and the centrality of the work of Christ for humanity, there will be singing and worship in your life. Very simple to state. But there it is. That's it. If you have really understood, there will be singing and worship in your life. In fact, it will characterize every facet of your life. And really at all times. Whether you're in church or out on a bicycle ride or at the task that you spend your working days, no matter where you're at, if you have grasped the meaning of Christ's work for you, there will be singing and worship in your life. Now we understand that the intensity and the strength and the nature of that singing and worship, it will vary. We're not always up on a mountaintop. But nevertheless, even in the times where it's not so strong, it's there. It's like that little brook that at the dead of winter just barely trickles along. It gurgles. There is singing, but it's not the roar of the springtime. So there's variety, there's times of intensity in the Christian life and a special sense of heaven's movement and heaven's action in your life, and other times where it's quieter and not so strong. But nevertheless, if you've understood the significance of Jesus Christ for your life, there will be singing and worship in your heart. Really, this is the great test. It's a simple test. But this is the great test of whether the significance of the Christ has taken hold of you, has gripped you, and has begun to shape and mold your life. Do you know singing and worship? Now be careful here. I don't mean singing by rote. I don't mean singing because you've come to Sabbath school and someone is singing, and so you join in. I don't mean singing just because you're in the pew in church and it's time to sing the hymn. No, I don't mean singing by rote. No, we mean a spontaneous singing. That which just rises up in the heart because your mind has turned to think about who He is for you and what He's done for you and all that He means for you. Your mind has begun to grasp and understand, and your heart has been touched by this phrase, the Lion from the tribe of Judah has overcome. And when you hear that phrase, there's this wave of relief and hope and peace and courage that floods through you because He has acted on my behalf. I'm not all alone. I'm not a sinner all by myself trying to get somewhere where I can find peace and rest. I'm not one all alone who faces the battles with temptation and with the devil himself and with the world and all the lure and the pull of wrong things. I'm not alone trying to deal with those things all by myself and somehow climb to a place where I can know peace and rest and hope and courage and know that my heart is okay because the Lion has taken hold of it with all His love and goodness and richness and power. No, I'm not a sinner alone. The Lion from the tribe of Judah has overcome. He's taken up on my behalf. He has moved on my behalf. I begin to understand the significance of all that He has done for me. And when I think of it, my heart sings. That's what we mean by singing. The singing that arises spontaneously within the heart as the mind turns again and again to the life and the work of Christ. In the same way, by worship, I don't mean simply coming to church and sitting in the pew and going through certain motions. No, I mean the whole heart drawn out before Him. Drawn out so that I can't hold myself back. Drawn out in gratitude and thanks and devoted obligation. Worship means to have completely forgotten the puny little self in all its carping preoccupation with itself, It means to have forgotten this self, and rather, instead of thinking of myself and constantly worrying and being anxious about myself and only seeing the things that concern myself, the things I'm worried about, the things I want, the things I don't think I've got that I need, all those things. No, worship means having forgotten about all those things and being taken up with the adoration and the proclamation, the singing out of who He is and what He has done. That's worship. Here's the self not singing its own praises. Well, that's our human tendency. Look at me. I've done this. I've accomplished that. I have had these experiences. The search for significance. No. Here is the self, not singing its own praises, not exalting itself, but exalting Him, wanting the others to see Him and only Him. You know, our lives are completely fulfilled when the driving purpose of our lives is, oh man, you got to see Him. You've got to see this Lion from the tribe of Judah. I want you to know Him. I want you to know, by God's grace, I've caught a little glimpse, and I want you to see too. Now that's worship. Wanting them to know Him and to understand Him and to exalt Him as well. Now we see that in this passage, don't we? We haven't read it yet, but let's turn now and let's read. You see, we're taking our cue here from what the 24 elders and the living creatures, we're taking our cue from their insight into the significance of this phrase, the Lion from the tribe of Judah has overcome. They had penetrating insight. It wasn't clouded by the troubles of a fallen world and the cogitations of the broken, fallen self and the blindness that has come into our lives from sin. No, their vision was crystal clear. They saw exactly the significance of what Christ had done. They knew the significance of that. And when they saw that, listen to the things they said. It's going to be singing in worship. We already read. They sang a new song. They sang a new song saying, "Worthy are you to take the book and to break its seals, for you were slain, and you purchased for God with your blood men from every tribe and tongue and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests to our God, and they will reign upon the earth." Do you catch that last phrase? They knew that what Christ had done would result in redeemed humanity reigning upon the earth. No more Satan. No more wickedness and evil in the human experience. No, on the basis of what Christ had done, they looked down and they said, the time's coming. He's redeemed. He's redeemed men and women, and they are going to reign on this earth. Oh, they're excited about it. They're praising. They're saying, He could do it. He has stepped forth. He's overcome. He's the one who can make this happen. But then they go on. Verse 11, "Then I looked and I heard the voice of many angels around the throne and the living creatures and the elders, and the number of them was myriads of myriads and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, 'Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing.'" And then that wasn't even enough. Then it follows, verse 13, "Every created thing which is in heaven and on the earth and under the earth and on the sea and all things in them, I heard saying, to Him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing and honor and glory and dominion forever and ever." They sang and they worshiped. I want us to be really clear. It is only the work of Christ that can do this for us. Only the work of Christ that can produce this kind of singing and this kind of worship and adoration of the living God. Apart from the work of Christ, we do not sing and we do not worship. Who has a device playing? Someone... Sounds like he's preaching on Revelation 4 and 5. We're going to have to listen to that sermon later. I'm sorry I'm drawing attention to it. It's distracting for me. So it's the work of Christ and the cross alone that can produce singing and worship in the human heart. We're fallen. We've been corrupted. Our hearts easily stray. We're easily blinded to the truths of heaven and its ways. And we cannot redeem ourselves. How can you produce a song of the Christ in your own heart? You could try all day long, and you can't do it. You can't fabricate it. You can't bring it about. How can you, as a fallen creature who is so used to serving and worshiping yourself, all your energies to take care of yourself, how can you produce a true and pure worship, an outward moving devotion directed to the living God? You can't do it. We're corrupted. We're fallen. We have no means within ourselves to produce this in our own hearts and lives. Martin Luther, the great reformer, used to love to say, we are beggars. We are beggars. We are the most destitute and flea-bitten and bedraggled beggars you've ever seen. We come and we hold out helpless hands. We cannot produce true singing and true worship in our lives. Humanity is bankrupt. We are bankrupt when it comes to the really crucial things. And unless we know that, the Christ will not have the significance for us that He really does have. We won't see it. We won't get it. Oh, how easy it is for us to depend when we're troubled on human psychology. We run to the psychologist. Maybe they've understood something that will help me to regulate my inner turmoil and feel better about myself and be able to have a more productive life. We run to the psychologist, but psychology can't do this thing that we're talking about. It can't produce one who worships the Father in spirit and in truth. Psychology can't do it. Human striving and determination, it can't do it. It's not just a mere matter of willpower. Well, if I try hard, I can worship God in a way befitting Him. No, striving it has its place, but it can do nothing here. Even determination. You know, I could go to one of those big boulders in Yosemite. I was just there with my friend Dana last Sunday, and And some of those boulders, they're just massive. They're like as big as houses. And I could go up to one of those boulders and decide, I'm going to push this boulder. I'm going to move it. And I could have all the determination that I wanted. And would I move that boulder even a hair's width? No, it wouldn't go anywhere. It's the same here. I cannot produce in my own heart a singing that is free and spontaneous for my Lord. I cannot produce in my own heart a worship of my Lord which is worthy of His name. I can't do it. I'm bankrupt. The pursuit of virtue can't do this. I can see high ideals and say, well, I'm going to pursue those high ideals. No, it can't do this. Religion cannot do this. Simply going to church and reading devotional material and trying to be a good person. Have you ever heard people say that? You talk to someone who hasn't come to understand, and if you talk about God at all, they immediately want to say, well, I've tried to be a good person. I've been the best person that I could be. You know, none of us are perfect, but no. Those kinds of attempts, they're well-meaning, I'm sure, but down the wrong track. Religion cannot do this. The work of Christ alone, and especially Christ upon the cross, can work in the human heart the miracle of spontaneous singing and worship of Him. And so we come back to our question, how do we know? How do we know that we have seen the significance of what this elder in heaven has said? A lion from the tribe of Judah has overcome. How do we know that we've seen the significance of that? We could put the question in a different form. How do we know we've been converted? How do we know that our heart is really God's? Well, we know it because singing and worship mark our lives. It's not on my notes, but I want to expand just a little bit more here, make sure there's not any misunderstanding. I'm not saying that if you've grasped the significance of Christ's work for you, that you'll never feel discouraged. I'm not saying that if you've grasped the significance, you'll never stumble and fall. I'm not saying that there won't be days when your spirits are low and you don't feel like singing at all. We are frail. We are human. There's so much that affects us, that affects our emotional patterns, that affects our experiences. I can think of different famous preachers. Charles Spurgeon, one of the greatest instruments of God in Victorian England. Thousands and thousands brought truly to the Lord through his ministry. And yet, towards the end of his life, there were times where the depression was so deep and dark upon his spirit that all he could do was stay at home. He couldn't go in the pulpit. He stayed at home, and someone found later, in one of those dark periods, he had taken, I don't know where he found the diamond, but there was a diamond somewhere in the room, and he had taken that diamond, and in his despair and his reaching out after the Lord, whom he knew but could not feel at that point and juncture, in the glass of the window he scratched a cross. So I'm not saying that there aren't these times of difficulty and great challenge. I'm not saying that we're always up on the mountaintop in this chapter 5 heavenly throne room experience and setting. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that as we make our way through our days, as we face the challenges, as we tackle the things that maybe would tend to discourage us, as we do hard things, as we carry heavy burdens, but maybe most of all, as we wrestle with the sinful tendencies that we ourselves are most aware of. The others may not see. They think we're great people. But we see, we know our own hearts. We know the places where temptation rises within us and we're tugged towards the wrong and where we don't have the right spirit. We know these places. And what I'm saying is that as we wrestle with these places, there come those moments in time where the light breaks through from that lion of the tribe of Judah. The light breaks through and we realize He just did something for me that I could never have done for myself. And that light breaks through and we sing, don't we? We sing. We sing because the significance of what He accomplished, incarnation, death, resurrection, ascension, ministry in the most holy of the heavenly of heavens. And we realize that one, that Christ, He just did something for me that I could never have done for myself. And because of it, we sing. That's what I mean. And we worship as we see Him as He is, as we begin to understand what He's done for us, as we see our own poverty and how wrong our spirit so often is, we fall before Him in the recognition that He has helped me where I could not help myself. He has met the deepest needs of my fallen and sinful heart. And as we realize He's met those needs, I'm not alone anymore. It's not me all alone trying to be good enough to get in with Him. No, He met me when my heart was even fighting against Him. He meets me and He shows me His goodness in such a way that instead of fighting, I fall at His feet and I say, "Oh Lord, thank You for Your mercy to me, a sinner. Thank You, Lord, for what You did for me. Oh Lord, I want nothing more than to worship You. You are beautiful. You are beyond what I could even imagine. You are so good and so loving and so compassionate, and look what You've done for me, Lord. How could I ever repay You?" That's what I mean by worship. And so these moments come. They're not every day. They're not constant. But be assured, if you know His hand at work in your life in this way, if you know those moments of singing, and if you know that compelling urge to fall before Him in worship because of what He has shown you, of what He is doing for you, if you know those things, you are tasting the significance of His work. And the good work He has begun, He will complete in you. Why do I make such a big deal of all this? It's because there is within us a deeply ingrained human tendency to seek refuge in what we have done instead of what He has done. You know, it amazes me. You can have tasted those experiences of His grace and mercy and His doing something for you that you know I could never have done for yourself. You can have tasted those, and still that deeply ingrained human tendency will draw you back towards, oh, I feel insecure. And instead of looking to Him, you think, well, I've been trying to do the right things. I put it in really crass, simple terms. It's always more subtle than that. But how easy it is to begin to drift back towards my performance as the basis of my security. My having done well as the basis of my security, rather than, Lord, you alone. I'm secure only because of you. Only because of what you have done for me and what you're doing. Oh, Lord, there I find rest. You see, it's very easy for us to forget that and to drift back. And in the worst cases, we develop the smug attitude of the religious. I thank Thee, Lord, that I am not as other men. It's put in very bald-faced terms there, but you watch yourself. Maybe it's just me. You see someone else who's really struggling with the sin problem and, well, at least I'm not like that. Has that ever popped in your head? It's that knee-jerk human reaction of self-justification and certainly there's something I can have done that will justify me and make me different and give me standing somehow. You see, the human heart is such that it actually resists. We've got to be aware of this because it's a battle in all of us. The human heart actually resists being a beggar. Actually resists being completely in the hands of God with no means to leverage Him. No means to make sure He does with me what I want Him to do. We don't like being that naked. We don't like feeling that helpless. And the reason is because of our sin problem, we really struggle to trust Him completely. Oh yes, we like to use Him. I said to some neighbors up in Greeley Hill, we were talking one day, and they've chosen the liberal expression of Christianity. They're into liberal Christianity and reading liberal theologians. And I probably wasn't completely with the right spirit myself because I don't like liberal theologians at all. And we were talking and I said to them, I said, oh, there's so many people, and I've been there myself, who simply have Christ as life insurance. Simply have Him as life insurance. He's a means for my self-protection so that nothing bad happens to me. Especially that I would lose out in the end and not exist forevermore. Christ is simply life insurance. You see, they haven't seen the real issues. The things that are involved in even being alive with a Creator like our Creator is, with a Redeemer like our Redeemer is. They haven't wrestled with the issues. With the fact that sin is a problem, that sin is destructive, that it's deceptive, that it will lead to eternal loss, that sin is like a wrecking ball that comes into the beauty and richness and wholeness of God's creation and smashes it all to bits. They haven't wrestled with that. All they're concerned about is the precious little self. I don't want anything to hurt me or to bring my life to an end. They're not wrestling with the real issues. But it's as you begin to wrestle with the real issues, you begin to ask the question, where am I? Where is my heart at? Where am I at in respect to this sin issue? Does it still have its grip on me? Where has it wrapped its tentacles around my motivations and my commitments and my priorities? Where does it hold me in its grip? Oh, you begin to wrestle with those kinds of questions, and you begin to see the issues, and you begin to realize sin is the kind of thing that I can do nothing about. I cannot save myself. Oh, you begin to wrestle with that, and all of a sudden your heart begins to cry out, where is that Lion from the tribe of Judah? I need him. I need him desperately, or all is lost. It's when you wrestle with the issues that, like John, if the Christ is not to be seen, all you can do is weep. Because all you see is a Christless horizon with a desperate need in your heart. That I need salvation, I need forgiveness, and I need freedom from the power of sin, or else all is lost. You wrestle with the issues, and this becomes the language of your heart and soul. It's not just religion anymore. It's not just trying to go through motions so I can feel better about myself and have that life insurance for the life to come. No, you're wrestling with the relationship between Creator and creatures, between a holy and just and perfect God and fallen, corrupt, rebellious humanity. You begin to wrestle with the real issues. And as you wrestle with those issues, He comes to mean more to you than life itself. You begin singing, you begin worshiping, and only from such a place would you ever lay down your life for Him. You know, you look on down in the rest of this book, and the ones who follow the Lamb wherever He goes, they say, are you going to crucify me? That's fine. Just not like my Lord. Put me upside down. You see, it's when you've grappled with the issues to the degree you see that without the Christ, I have nothing that is of any value. When you've come to that realization, He begins to mean the world to you. And songs are born in the night. And pure, adoring worship begins to take place within your heart. This is Christianity. Oh, how easily we bypass this. How easily we drift over into a performance mentality. How easily we begin to think that what we manage to do ourselves is more weighty and important than what He has done and will do for us. How perniciously we look for reasons for self-boasting and self-congratulation. Test yourselves. Test yourselves. What is the language of your soul? What plays within you spontaneously? Is it self-congratulation? Is it your accomplishments? Is it your accomplishments you speak of when you are with friends? That you parade verbally when standing before others? Or is the Christ and His mercy and His goodness to you the theme of your conversation and song? I sum up this way. We must study the cross. We must be hungry to see and know all that is encompassed in that act of God on the cross. We must grasp the significance of this elder's testimony. Behold, the Lion that is from the tribe of Judah has overcome. For it is by this means alone, it is by seeing this for what it is, as they saw it in this heavenly scene that is here described. It's by seeing this for what it is, by this means alone, that we can overcome. And by this means alone, that we can give faithful witness. Let's bow our heads and pray. O Lord, help us. We are frail and weak and blind. So often we don't see, and we We stagger around trying to find something that will fill the needs of our heart. And yet we have such a hard time coming to you. Help us, Lord. Bring us to yourself. Open our hearts. Give us eyes to see who you are and what you've done in the light of the great issues of human experience and history. Give us eyes to see, Lord, that we might sing and that we might worship. In your name we pray. Amen.